SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Middays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. Middays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Middays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music on this
Friday, y'all.
Is it going to get cold again?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, jeez. I'm tired of all this cold weather. Be gone with it. Come on, spring, summer. I like it hot. Better than I do the cold, but
that's
man.
Where you and I differ.
My son, same way. It seems like no matter what the temperature is, he's still warm.
I'm of the school of thought that I can always put on more layers or prepare or sit by a fire or a heater. I can only get so naked when it's hot.
Yeah, I
especially
hear
out
you.
in public.
I hear you. So we're sad to report, though, the death toll continues to tick upward here in Mississippi, the result of the winter storm Fern that blanketed the Magnolia State, swept through at 14 now, I believe, Rhino. That's the governor announced that this morning. So, man, and I hope no more. I really do. I hope and pray. But you got to be concerned, just given the conditions and the effort required to get back to normal, get the power going, and allow people to avoid exposure to the elements. It's becoming a problem. You're seeing lots of reports about people being in their vehicles, sleeping in their vehicles, right, to get some warmth, especially those with infants and young children who are particularly vulnerable, older folks, the elderly as well. So do what you can to help those people out. There's a number of stories of Mississippians behaving as good neighbors and assisting Mississippians in need, and we are grateful for them. We are not surprised when it comes to the generosity and the concern Mississippians have for their fellow citizens. So that's kind of the big news that's going on across the United States, or I should say the state. In the United States, oh man, are we going to get another shutdown? Because Senator Lindsey Graham reportedly stormed into Senate Majority Leader John Thune's office, put a hold on the funding package late last night. This funding package required to keep the government open. The Senate officially adjourned last night without a vote, back in this morning to try to pass a deal. And Chuck Schumer, wasting no time to score political points, takes a bit of a shot at the Republicans, saying they need to get their act together. Oh, geez, is that ever pot calling the kettle there? So, negotiations with the White House between Schumer, with Schumer, I should say, we're actually going pretty well, and other Democratic leaders. It's all about long-term funding for Department of Homeland Security, and their demands include banning immigration officers from wearing masks, requiring body cameras and visible identification, tightening warrant requirements, ending roving patrols, and holding federal agents to the same use of force standards as state and local police. They also want full investigations into the recent shootings. Now, the Republicans aren't crazy about many of these proposals, saying that they could endanger officers' lives, undermine enforcement. So it looked like we had a compromise that was imminent last night, but that didn't happen. So we'll see. And, of course, the markets are selling off. A number of reasons for that. The Dow down 354. Crude oil continuing to move up over $65 a barrel now. I think that's why you haven't seen much movement at the price of the pump. Likely to see it go back up as a result of this. And I think that's just geopolitical strife that's got oil traders a little skittish. And that's driving up the price. The funny money again, 82,000, it down as well. $1,400 today. But how about this? You know, yesterday I talked about Microsoft and what a blowout quarter they had. Just phenomenal quarter. $82 billion of revenue and generated a whopping $38 billion of net income. You looked it up for us. I did as well. We came to the same conclusion. That's the third best performing quarter from a net income perspective in our history. Fannie Mae number one, Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's organization, number two. That in 2013, 2021, respectively. And then yesterday, it was Microsoft. You also found out for us, I didn't research that deeply, that of the top 10, Berkshire Hathaway has 7 of them or something like that.
5 of the top 10.
5 of the top 10, okay. So then yesterday after the show, it's Apple on the stage reporting earnings. You know what they said to Microsoft, don't you? Hold my beer. I'm just blown away by this. $143 billion of revenue, $42 billion of net income. That elevates them to the number 2 spot now, Apple, in terms of the most profitable quarter ever produced. $42 billion. If they're continuing on that run rate for 4 quarters, that's $170 billion in a year. Apple officially made in 1 quarter, I just got to point this out, more than the entire health insurance industry makes in a year. For what it's worth. I just find that just almost shocking, staggering numbers. It turns out we're really addicted to these mobile devices. And this iPhone 17, they're selling the heck out of it. Now, surprisingly, their stock's not reacting in a way you would think. It's up a little bit, but it's not major up, and it's all about the future. Remember, the cost or the price of shares is essentially a discounted view, if you will, of the future. So, I don't know, just back-to-back 2 great American technology companies with blowout. And then it's next week, it's Amazon and Alphabet on deck for earnings. And you know the investment community is going to be watching that, tuned into that. Also on the economic front, U.S. producer prices posted their biggest gain in 5 months. Producer prices, the PPI, of course, that the cost, a measurement of the cost of inputs to the production process, like the wholesale price gauge. So does this, again, suggest inflation on the horizon? This is the main thing that's driving the markets down today, that investors say, yeah, I just don't think this inflation thing is over. And you got the price of oil ticking up, all that figures in. And then you got the prospect of the government not being funded. And you know how that works, Rhino. All the algorithms process that and say, sell. That's kind of the way it works. So we thought we had a deal last night, but it doesn't appear that we do. to avoid the government shutting down, at least right now. They still have time. They still can salvage it and get something done. And, I'd say most Americans really just don't care about all the politics. They just want to end the instability and the chaos and the tumult. I think it's a good way to put it. That's what they want. So we do have some good news here in Mississippi, in my view, and that is there's one of the Mississippi Certificate of Need provisions. A judge says you got to get rid of that thing. So we'll talk about that. A federal judge strikes down the moratorium on home health agencies. It's like been around for 40 years. I had no idea. That's just gross interference with the market. Get rid of these Certificate of Need laws now, legislature. We're coming right back in the Element Well studio. News Director J.T. Mitchell at 11:20. State Health Officer Dr. Dan Edney at 12:05. Stay with us.
Hey, this is Bob.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Bring it on! Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Help! I need somebody. Help! Not just anybody. Help! I need someone. Help! When I was younger, so much younger than today, I never needed anybody's help in any way.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. We welcome now the mayor of the city of Oxford, Mayor Robyn Tannehill. Hey, Mayor, how's it going this morning?
Gerard, we just got up to do it again. We are just giving it all we've got.
Have you slept any this week?
Well, you know me better than that.
Man, I don't even know what to say, honestly, other than perhaps you can give us an update, and hopefully you got some reports of some good news, some breakthroughs, some accomplishments.
We do, Gerard. We've got a team that is just unbeatable, and an amazing team of Oxford City employees that have just, the floodgates have opened, and other communities have just sent us so many great people that are helping us with debris removal and getting our power lines back up and running. We've got 10,500 utilities customers, electric utilities customers, and we were down 12 of our 16 major circuits on Monday morning, and last night we were able to report that we have energized all 16 circuits. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody has power back, but the major grid and infrastructure that has to take place before we can start attaching individual lines is now in place. We have, like I said, 10,500 customers, and this morning when I woke up, we had 2,200 that still didn't have power. I'm getting constant reports of other feeder lines that we are connecting, and so I'm going to say it's well below 2,000 as we speak right now, which is really moving in a positive direction. Of course, there are two different utilities that provide electricity to customers in Oxford and Lafayette County, and the city of Oxford is a much smaller footprint than Northeast Power, but Northeast Power is doing an amazing job as well. And there are a lot of people that live in the city of Oxford that have Northeast Power for their electric provider. But Northeast Power is doing the same as we are. Just they've got crews in from all over, and we are starting at one end of a line and working our way to the other end.
Yeah, I have checked in with some friends in Oxford as well, and they've all reported that their power has been restored. And what they're doing now is sort of taking an inventory, around their property of what is salvageable and what's not. And, of course, a monumental cleanup effort awaits once the power is restored, the roads are cleared, and life is somewhat returned to normal. Man, that just, looking at the photos there, Mayor, that's a big effort that awaits.
Gerard, it is really not something you can understand unless you see it yourself, honestly. It literally looks like a tornado has gone down every single street in our community. It is, it's hard to put into words. I mean, I was talking to some of the linemen yesterday morning that were from Opelika, Alabama, Decatur, Alabama, some crews from Georgia, some crews from Tennessee, and every single one of them said, we had no idea it was this bad. They were just floored, and you are. Every time I drive down a different street, my mouth's hanging open. The landscape of Oxford has forever changed. And like you said, people are getting their power back on. They start these damage assessments. But we still got a lot of people that don't have power, still have some customers without water that we hope is going to be restored before the end of the day. But so it's hard for us to get to those priorities of let's assess kind of, the overall damage when we have such immediate needs that we're trying to meet. This morning we find out that there's no water at Camp McCain that's being diverted to Oxford. We've got people that have been without water now for days, and, those MEMA supplies aren't coming. So we are, working as hard as we can. We understand that FEMA has delivered some water to Columbus, and we think we've got some trucks coming from Columbus with some water. But it has been such a frustrating process. But we have given it all we've got. We've had 300 people in a warming station that we've been taking care of and feeding 3 meals a day to, and we've got people out doing points of distribution, or we did yesterday handing out water and MREs. We don't have it to hand out today, but we are hopeful that we will get more resources so that we can continue to do that.
So, Mayor, one of the things that many are concerned about, including us here at the network, are just the most vulnerable in our population, the elderly, the young, of course, kind of on both ends of the spectrum. I know you have concerns about that as well. Is there anything that you could advise or anything special that the first responders and so forth can do to, in particular, to assist them?
Well, our neighborhoods and complexes, developments that we know are primarily elderly people, we've been doing welfare checks in those neighborhoods and taking water and MREs to the residents there. Like I said, most of those are in the city limits, Gerard, that we're, obviously the ones I'm aware of are in the city limits, but most of the, all the assisted living facilities, all of the different apartment complexes that we know are primarily senior citizens, and the just pods in different areas, we have restored power to almost all of those now. Okay. So, we're making progress, but we were aware of where those community members are from the beginning, and first responders have been checking in on them and bringing food and water as we've gone through the past 5 days. Okay.
And I know a lot of those facilities have backup generators as well, but you've probably heard, as we have, that a lot of reports of those failing or malfunctioning. They don't really get the workout they need in between their use in the case of an emergency, and sometimes you find out there's a problem when you need it, as you know. That's right.
That's right. It's numerous people have said that, how in the world are y'all going to get through this? And, you should have planned better, and you should have done this, and you should have done that. And, there are a lot of folks that apparently have engineering degrees that I wasn't aware that they did. But, Mother Nature's undefeated. Yeah. Yeah. This is an act of Mother Nature that, an ice storm that takes down 80% of your electric grid, you can't prepare for that. You can't prepare for many of these things that we are dealing with right now. But what you do is you get up and you make the next right decision and the next right decision, and that's what we're doing. Yeah, that's what we're doing. You can certainly prepare. And but they're limited because you can't anticipate everything that can happen. It's virtually impossible. I'm quite sure that you and other leaders across our state will
we'll, when the time comes, do a little post-mortem on this event and improve.
No doubt.
Yeah, and improve our
Gerard,
prep.
There is nothing that we do that we're perfect at,
Sure.
for sure. And we can improve in every service that we provide. And certainly at the end of this, as we did at the end of COVID and other disasters that we've had to deal with, you do a deep dive and a self-assessment, and you go, how do I do it better the next time?
Yeah.
Lord forbid we have to do it again anytime soon. So, yeah, all those conversations are, a month down the road, but absolutely they'll happen. And absolutely there's some things we can do better at. There always are.
Sure. So to what extent, Mayor, at the municipal level, are you guys coordinating with the state resources, DOTD, DPS, MEMA, et cetera?
We have an emergency managed coordinator for the county and for the city, and they have been working hand in hand in requesting things from MEMA. It was a very slow start before we had any responses. I don't think the supplies had been put in place. And so we are still doing that. We're still requesting from MEMA, and MEMA is still making deliveries. And as we speak, I'm being told that MEMA is in fact not out of water, and that we should expect trucks to come today. And we understand that they are coming from Columbus.
Okay.
I think they're just a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
So they're just a lot of moving parts. Everybody's giving it all they've got, and this is just an unprecedented storm.
Yeah, you're right. We had Commissioner Sean Tyndall of DPS on earlier in the week. We got about 30 seconds left, but he reported they had responded to 141 stranded motorists on the highways that the state troopers deal with. Are you guys, before we go real quick, seeing that kind of situation in the city that your police department and perhaps fire department are working with?
Well, we immediately had those kinds of issues.
Yeah.
Our roads are pretty clear now, and MDOT did a really good job of helping us on 6 and 7. But stranded motorists has not been what our biggest issue has been, for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, Mayor, appreciate your efforts. I know the great people of the city of Oxford do as well, and thanks for joining us this morning with a comprehensive update. Mayor Robyn Tannehill of the city of Oxford. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Gerard. Have a good one.
You too. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
From theseabrook.com.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees. The C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Well, President Trump has his man, Rhino. That would be the successor to Jerome Powell to head the Federal Reserve as the chairman. Powell's term ends in May. The president, no surprise here, didn't ask Mr. Powell to stay on for another term. President Trump selecting Kevin Warsh as the next Fed chair. Kevin Warsh, a lawyer, and someone that is thought to be a bit pro-Bitcoin, pro-crypto. So the crypto markets are happy about that, though there is a sell-off today for crypto. I'm a little surprised in that he is thought to be a little hawkish when it comes to monetary policy, meaning keeping rates kind of tight and high, interest rates, And the president has been very clear that he wants someone who would very quickly act differently with respect to interest rates than the current Fed chairman, Jerome Powell. Now, Warsh, by the way, was an investor in crypto venture called Basis. He said in 2018, by the way, that, quote, it was building a cryptocurrency with an algorithmic central bank. He said that in December of that year, did Mr. Warsh. Interesting. And then he said shutting it down, citing regulatory difficulties. So it was kind of in and out sort of deal. But that's the story there. Kevin Warsh. The president had announced earlier he had narrowed down the field to 4 prospective selections. But he has announced that his man is going to be Kevin Warsh. So you're going to see a whole lot more about that for sure. Mr. Trump announced this on his Truth Social platform. He said that he will go down as one of the, in all caps, great Fed chairmen, maybe the best. He had thought about Kevin Hassett. That's the director he is of the White House National Economic Council, also known as the NEA. But Mr. Trump made it clear that he's too good at what he does in that role. We want to keep him there. So Hassett did tell CNBC that he already had his dream job. And he has commended the selection of Kevin Warsh for this role as the Fed chairman. So, big news. And the markets are certainly absorbing this news, trying to figure it out. Christopher Waller, a current Fed governor, was also among the possibilities, but he was not selected. The president picked Kevin Warsh. So there you go. We'll see where all that leads. Not exactly sure at this point, and it will be interesting to see if he does, in fact, take a more dovish stance than Jerome Powell and push the Fed governors to lower interest rates. Meanwhile, the socialist mayor of New York has wasted no time in mounting a tax assault on those dirty, greedy, rich people. You know, the people that make New York City possible, that make it viable. He's all over them. What did you tell us the other day? Their budget, $120 billion for a population of 8 million? Here in Mississippi, we have 3 million and a budget of 7. Now, I get that cities have different spending objects and categories than states do. Still, though, that sounds like a bunch of money, doesn't it, for 8 million? I could kind of buy it if it were maybe 2 to 4 times our state budget, but we're talking 20 times almost, 19. That's insane. I can't figure that out. So, of course, you know what they tell you when you're selling, you got to make sure that the customer's qualified, meaning they got money to buy whatever it is you're selling. And that's kind of the approach that these socialists use, do they not, in taxation? Well, let's go to who's got the money. It's those rich people. Let's turn them upside down, just shake them stupid and silly till all the money falls out. The mistake they make, of course, as you know, Rhino, is they think that their wealth is in cash. They literally don't understand that it's not like they just got this cash money sitting around that they can go write checks on and bail out New York City. So they've got a deficit to the tune of $12 billion. And, of course, he's blaming this on the prior administration. That's just the way it rolls in politics, doesn't it? It's always the prior's fault. And I just want to say, well, we hired you, we elected you to fix it. We don't care about how we got here at this point. What's your plan to fix it?
Clapped back and said I left him with an $8 billion surplus.
Sure did. He sure did. The prior mayor of New York, of course. So Well, I think it's kind of funny to watch that rift up there in New York. And Mondami said, working people did not cause this crisis. Of course, this insinuates that anybody that has any wealth doesn't work. I'm so sick of that. You think they just woke up one day and had money in the bank? They don't work.
Well, the ultimate irony is the vast majority of the supporters that could afford to go and rally for him in the middle of the workday.
True.
Are the very people he's denigrating.
That's absolutely true. Well,
the vast majority of wacko leftists and revolutionaries are children of affluence.
So, you're so right. He said that he could, quote, build a stronger city for everyone if New York's top 1% earners paid an additional 2% in income taxes. Now, let me clarify. This kind of reminds me of this problem we have with the tax reform bill that passed in our legislature last year when you get little confusion over the decimal points. He's not talking about you pay 2% more as in if you paid $1, you now pay $1.02. He means increase the tax rate by 2 percentage points. I know that this is a difficult calculation I found for, and I'm not talking about our audience, but the liberals in particular, they tend to present it in a way that sounds, oh, it's only 2%. No, he means like going from 10 to 12. That's different than 2%. That's not 10.02, that's 12. That's what they don't get. That's significant. That's a 20% increase. I know I'm diving into the math weeds here, but they can say this and it sounds, oh, it's only 2%, right? But then these wealthy people say, maybe it's time for me to get the hell out of New York. And DeSantis in Florida and Abbott in Texas, and we honestly should be doing the same here because I know people are saying, well, we don't want them bringing their liberal politics. These people aren't liberal. There are some more than you think, honestly. They don't like this crap either. And they think more like you and I. I've dealt with them. They think like we do. They think this is crazy and all this loony stuff, whether it's fiscal policy or cultural policy, etc., is bad. This guy's going to drive them out. So you're going to be left with, no disrespect to those working families. That's great. Except they ain't got no money. Not the way you spend it. Why don't you get your spending in line? I know that's a novel concept that seems to be lost in government these days. But that's what's going on up there. And we shouldn't be surprised, right? We knew this was going to happen.
Is it any wonder that a bunch of kids born with a silver spoon in their mouth don't know how to manage their money?
No, zero. And I hang that on their parents for not training them, for not educating them. They should have been doing that in the house. They have the resources to do it and the means to do it. What about former CNN anchor Don Lemon? Whew! Looks like the federal agents have arrested him because he busted up in a Minnesota church. You've seen the reports as well, that they went to kids. They got in the face of kids and blamed them for stuff.
Yeah, told their kids that the parents are going to hell.
Take this guy away as far as I'm concerned. We're stepping aside for a break. Another segment in Hour 1. J.T. Mitchell from the news at 11:20. Dr. Edney with the State Health Department at 12:05.
Now back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. You're tuned in to Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. So, there's no doubt that one of the most deadly forms of cancer is pancreatic cancer, often a death sentence. Very difficult to detect because it usually is diagnosed before anyone has any symptoms. And I don't know, Rhino, that there are any specific blood tests or anything like that to detect pancreatic cancer. So usually there's some little nagging symptom that shows up. You scan that area.
I want to say there is a test, but it's exceedingly expensive, and it has a false positive rate that doctors don't like.
Yeah. Unnecessary stress in many cases. So, but good news on that front. Again, human innovation, using tools at their disposal to cure disease, in this case, one of the deadliest to humanity. And this comes from a Spanish scientist, Dr. Mariano Barbacid. He's been involved in research, leading research, where he now announces just yesterday a major breakthrough against the most common form of pancreatic cancer. He says that he reported his team used a 3-drug combination to attack the cancer from different angles. And, of course, testing that on lab mice.
Yeah, it's just still in the early stages, but it is promising.
Yeah. But he also, it's reported that he helped discover the RAS cancer gene back in 1982. Didn't realize that. So you're right. This is it's promising, as you say. And I just add this to it because everybody that listens knows that how much I believe and have faith in humans' ability to utilize technology and tools to solve human problems. It's how we've done it since we invented the wheel, essentially. Just different set of tools, right, in the toolbox today. But I started thinking about how quantum computing could be valuable in this effort, right? When you're testing these various drug combinations, something that is extremely difficult to do. But if you could simulate that using...
Well, I mean, when we talked about quantum computing and we joked about time travel because it's doing more than the time we've had allotted in the universe, that's why it could be groundbreaking, is because it can do enough, it can do so many computations that we literally have not had enough time since the dawn of the universe to today to have done those calculations manually.
You know,
or even with normal computing. Like if you took your desktop and hopped in a time machine and went back to the birth of the universe, to when God said, "Let there be light," and you started it running calculations, it still wouldn't be done today with what a quantum computer can do.
And this surfaced because you remember I shared this on the show. I remember I was doing a remote for Empower down at the Sheraton here in Rankin County, and Google had just announced their new Willow chip, quantum computing chip. And I was reading that, hey, this thing could do a calculation in a matter of seconds that would take a traditional supercomputer 10 septillion years. Now, I didn't really comprehend what that was. It's 18 sets of 3 zeros, by the way. And you then observed and told our audience that's longer than the universe has been in existence. And that's just kind of a mind-boggling concept. You can't even wrap your head around that. But point here is using that technology, which is still being developed, but it's coming fast, to solve problems such as finding some combination of drugs like this scientist has been doing. No telling how long he's been working on that. Could he have been aided and shrunk the time frame required, right, to come to this conclusion that looks promising? And we probably could even go beyond look promising. Yeah, this is going to work, or it's not, if we had the computing horsepower to do that. This is good news. This is good stuff. Just wanted to pass that on. I thought that was fairly revelational that maybe we've got some breakthrough here that could address this most deadly form of cancer. Probably everybody tuned in knows someone that passed away from pancreatic cancer. I can name 3 people right now that spouses of friends, direct friends that I could name. And gosh, this would be good news if maybe there's some treatment for that. Again, still in the infancy stages, but probably a bigger breakthrough, wouldn't you say, Rhino, on treating pancreatic cancer than we've seen in maybe ever, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the important thing. All right, we've got top of the hour upon us. That means Fox News, SuperTalk News. In the next hour, once again, it's JT Mitchell, our news director, a bunch of news to report, and then Dr. Dan Edney, the state health officer, at 12:05.
Of MidDays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone, to Hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this
Friday, y'all.
The president weighing in on his selection for the Federal Reserve Chairman, Kevin Warsh. He says rates should be 2 or 3 points lower. I think a lot of people would like to see that. My guess is, my estimate is here. I'm not going to call it a guess. It's just based on my knowledge of economics and just past experience in history. That would be welcome in the short term. But my concern is that in the long term, that could spike inflation again. So while I think there's room for the Fed to cut rates somewhat right now, I can tell you that they're consuming this latest producer price index data that we shared earlier in the show, showing an increase in the cost of wholesale goods to the production process of retail goods and services. And in fact, Rhino, as we talked about many times, a lot of that PPI number going up was driven by services. Because our economy is a services economy, way more so than it is a manufacturing economy. That's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean manufacturing has shrunk. It's shrunk as a percentage of the overall GDP of the economy because the pie has gotten a lot bigger. We've just invented all sorts of new endeavors, new businesses, new services that didn't even exist when manufacturing was at its peak in the 50s. So it now represents about 8% of total GDP, and that's just because the overall economy is just way bigger and is comprised more of services. Healthcare is an example. At $5.3 trillion, representing about 18% now of the total economy. That's how much money we spend on health care in this country. And that's largely because, as I've said many times before, we keep inventing more of it, which is a good thing. But it costs money, and most people want it if it could alleviate suffering, disease, death. All makes sense. So the president, however, has got his man. And you know this, the investors are going to be chewing on that for a while to figure out what that means. Also, millions of pages of Epstein documents are going to be released. That just announced by the Justice Department. They include, it is reported, thousands of videos and photographs. Man, oh man. You know, folks are going to be all over that for sure. Here at home, a bill authored by Senator Joey Fillingane from the Hattiesburg area would update and expand the charter school program in the state of Mississippi. Senate Bill 2300. Its main provision, Rhino, would allow the creation of special, if you will, special charter schools that are more tailored and focused on certain subject matters. I think this makes sense, honestly. And that is the main provision of the bill. If they are defined as designed to meet and deliver to a special purpose, right? You've seen this bill.
Like MSMS.
Yeah, right. Which I think is especially as specialized as our world is, as our economy is, it absolutely makes sense that you need the basics, no doubt. You've got to have the core subjects, but it's a specialized world to get you better prepared for life after high school, whether it's you go straight to an occupation or you go to college. Either way, still specialized. Every deadgum thing is. And even the trades, you know, you think a lot about that being physical labor. There's a lot of mental work now involved, and that's a good thing because, once again, guess what they have? Tools, right? I mean, I just had some roof work done in my house. The roofing guys come out, and what do? Fly a drone over my roof that captures. Here's where we see that we need to do a little work, right?
Yeah, because in 30 minutes you can get a better look at than sending 3 guys up there.
Yeah, and it's less money on top of that. So, and guess what they're using to do that? Data centers. I just thought that was cool. So they sent me a video. And then there was, certain problem areas where they highlighted and pulled that out as a still photo, said, here's what we're going to do. Here's your quote to match that. All automated. It's beautiful. Now that's, kind of an old industry. It's the roofing business. But this company, a good local Mississippi company, has adopted and has implemented all these technologies in something that you wouldn't think about. I mean, it's a classic trade, roofing. And did a fantastic job, by the way. But I just thought that was cool. So, yeah, we're going to fly the drone over your house. I had to mess with my roof in a while. This is cool. But so you could see where, for example, one of these specialized schools, charter school, maybe that's a focus area for them. I just picked that one out of the air. It applies to all the trades. And to prepare them, to sort of prepare them at age-appropriate level, right, as they prepare to go to the next level. This is a good bill, I think, and I appreciate Senator Fillingane. The problem is, Rhino, is that most of the opponents to school choice, they also oppose charter schools. They're not fans of that. They view that as competition, as encroaching on their protected turf and fiefdoms. I disagree with them, and I think this is a good thing. And I think this would better educate our students, our children, our most precious resource and asset. So I applaud that. Meanwhile, there's an article up now, we can talk about this, about a bill, House Bill 1284, which would have consolidated some of Mississippi's community colleges. In fact, 6 of those colleges would be consolidated down to 3. The bill would have paired 2 community colleges together for a total of 6 down to 3. This was from Representative Trey Lamar of Senatobia, but that bill has failed. Coahoma County College would have been absorbed by Mississippi Delta Community College. Meridian would have been absorbed by East Mississippi Community College, and Southwest Mississippi Community College would have become a part of Copiah-Lincoln, Colin Community College. That bill is now dead, and Dr. Wendy Smith of Southwest Mississippi Community College, Associate Vice President for Workforce Training, wrote on Facebook celebrating, quote, "We have the greatest community in the country. We spoke up and we were heard." So here's what I would say, just a takeaway from this, Rhino, something we've talked about a lot of times, something many Mississippians would like to see, and that's consolidation in the K-12 school community. I get the feeling this doesn't bode well for that. Maybe I'm overreacting because we're dealing with community colleges. I admit that's different than K-12 schools. But in general, there's pushback. So there's people that want to see consolidation. As long as it doesn't affect them, that's what you normally get. Yeah, make them do it, right? Not me. Mine's perfect. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but in general, that's the attitude of people.
If it's an uphill battle to get something as simple as public-to-public portability, yeah, it's unlikely you're going to see much traction with really anything else related to education, but especially something that would be as controversial as consolidation.
Yeah, and don't forget that in HB 2, the House bill that mainly focuses on education freedom with the Magnolia student accounts and all of its various provisions, it also included a provision that would consolidate Copiah-Lincoln public schools, or Copiah County public schools with Hazelhurst public schools. So the county with the city. That's the sort of the typical scenario.
Yeah, if you're going to see any consolidation, it's going to be on a granular basis.
Yeah. But that, I found it strange. I mean, I don't know the rationale behind that. I haven't talked to anybody in the House and the Speaker about it. By the way, our condolences to him over the loss of his father earlier in the week. Speaker of the House, Jason White. But apparently there had been discussions, right, with district folks, and that was something that was viewed favorably to combine those two districts. But I still feel like that's an uphill battle. Though I want to be clear, I think it's desperately needed, and I think there needs to be a complete exploration, if you will, of that possibility with various scenarios to test that out, to try to eliminate some of the duplicative back office expenses and get more money to the classroom. JT Mitchell, news director's next.
Hey, this is Bob, and if
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert, here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
She was a princess, queen of the highway. Sign in the road said, take us to Madre.
Of course, that's the obligatory Doors, so bumping us into this segment. One of our next guests' favorite bands, that would be JT Mitchell, news director, SuperTalk Mississippi News.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about.
Get it going there, Rhino. You got it? The Chiron? Okay. We've had a little technical difficulty.
That's okay. It still sounds normal on our newscast. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah,
and
man.
I always appreciate the Doors, Rhino. You know, 2025 was the 60th anniversary, and it's hard to believe it's 2026, so the 61st anniversary.
60th. Gosh, and these guys were in their 20s when they were making that great music.
Oh, it's hard to believe. I mean, the other day, as you know, the 27 Club, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, etc.
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, the other day, Janis Joplin, she and Dolly Parton share a birthday, and I heard on the radio that Janis would have been 83 years old.
Unbelievable.
How crazy is that to think about?
That's bizarre. Makes me feel old, too. So. All right, so, of course, the weather. That has dominated the news this week for sure. We've had a number of guests on both programs that have been kind enough to take a little moment away from their efforts to help Mississippians and give us updates. It really had great interviews all week, at least to inform our audience.
That's right. And, you know, even going into last week, you guys with the Talk Network, us with the News Network, we're doing what we could to try to get the word out because radio is the quickest way to get information out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I was talking to MDOT Executive Director Brad White last week, we talked about how you always want to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I think this situation was preparing for the worst and getting arguably the worst.
Maybe worse. than what we expected, I should say.
That's right. And so here we are. It's hard to believe that Winter Storm Fern moved out Sunday afternoon. As of the latest count this morning, 21 counties still have ice. That's crazy. That 5 days after the storm, 21 counties are still seeing ice, still seeing issues, and we can't even get to recovery mode yet because the state is still in response mode. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That's part of my job. I do get to provide good news sometimes, and hopefully we will by the end of the segment, but I also have to provide bad news. And we have another cold front coming in this weekend. It's going to be a statewide cold front. It's going to include temperatures from Corinth all the way down to the coast, lows between 10 and 20 degrees. It will feel colder as well. Fortunately, no precipitation in the forecast, but we're sitting here talking about 21 counties still having significant ice 5 days after the storm. It's not going anywhere if the temperatures don't get up. We're in a situation where sunlight and temperatures above 32 degrees, those are our best friends. Well, right now we probably won't see those best friends until Monday, Tuesday, and we need it bad.
Bad. So it appears, though, Rhino, latest report I saw from DOTD as of yesterday afternoon, all roads are open. Is that true? Or is that stretch of 22?
Not all roads, but 55 and 22 have been open. They're still saying that there is ice and debris and crews on the side of the road, so travel with caution and only travel if absolutely necessary, but they have opened the interstates.
All right.
And you know what was interesting to watch, because my team, big shout out to them up here covering all weekend, was that throughout the storm, they did not have to close any major roadways. At all times, there was at least one lane open on your interstates and your highways. 2-lane roads, you can't speak for them. They did have to close down in places. But then it wasn't really until a couple of nights ago where we saw those major traffic jams up there outside of Batesville as we got closer to the Tennessee state line. And that's days after the storm. I mean, the lingering effects of this, I could not have predicted.
No, and I don't recall it being like that with the 94 storm. I don't remember the interstates being closed for that length of time. But this is an exceptional deal.
Yeah, and so before we move on, I just want to say, if you live in an impact zone this weekend, I would play it like you did last weekend. I would stay home if possible. I would make sure you have all your ducks in a row and you are prepared for more winter weather. Like I said, no precipitation forecast, knock on wood, but just be safe out there.
Amen. All right, so in spite of the weather, our friends at the legislature are still down there deliberating and debating legislation. What do you got there?
Hey, they took off Monday because of this terrible winter storm, the worst in over 3 decades.
Right.
They came back Tuesday and they hit the ground running. At the beginning of the session, you and I talked about it, how education and PERS were really just the hot topic, immediate issues. And the dust has kind of begun to settle.
Yeah.
Of course, there's more work to be done in those realms.
Yeah.
But this week they've gotten to some bills that are worth pointing out that maybe have not gotten as much coverage because of those hot topic issues. Earlier this week, the House passed unanimously a bill that would require state-regulated insurance companies to cover the cost of biomarker testing. Now, if you don't know what biomarker testing is, it's pretty nifty. It's a technology where you either give a blood test or a tissue sample if you're a cancer patient, and it will literally tell your doctor what kind of treatment you need. Rather than your doctor guessing, you could go through chemo, radiation, another form of treatment, this test tells them the pinpoint treatment they need. And so right now it's not covered by insurance.
Okay.
It will be through this bill. Got received in the Senate this morning. The American Cancer Society has been a big advocate for this. They'll actually have their Cancer Action Day next Wednesday at the Capitol. Sam Creekmore is behind it. And it's
Public Health Chairman in the House.
Yeah, and it's actually named after Casey Urey's wife, who passed away.
Yeah, that's
she
right.
She used biomarker testing.
Representative from the coast.
That's right. And so that's a bill people need to know about because, every year, I think something like 20,000 Mississippians hear the words, "You have cancer." Hopefully, this helps prevent some of those cases from
Amen.
turning into the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Another bill that is not moving, but is worth knowing that it's not moving, is this bill to consolidate 6 of the community colleges.
Yeah.
Y'all talked about it earlier. Man, that had the community college scene in shambles. People were not happy because the state has objectively one of the best community college systems in America. Now, this bill was introduced by Representative Lamar. Noble intentions, cut costs. He said it would save tens of millions in administrative cost. Now, the people in the JUCO system came out and said, well, technically, our administrations are pretty small. Think about the impact this may have on our communities. You look at Summit. Southwest Mississippi Community College is Summit, Mississippi.
Yeah.
People rely on them as a hub for entertainment, a hub for recreational opportunities, a hub for community courses. Changing the name takes away a brand that's been around for 99 years. And so this is an example of the public speaking out about something and it getting shut down. But that happened this week as well.
Yeah. Civic events a lot as well on these community colleges. I know I've attended some because they have the facilities to accommodate groups in these small communities that really don't have anything
That's
like
right.
that. So
that's absolutely correct. And so that's been happening. And I mean, we try to cover everything at the Capitol so all of our great listeners out there don't have to do the brunt work. They can just go read it at supertalk.fm or listen to you and me talk about it. So please stay with us because we got another big deadline next week. And we have a couple more months of all this lawmaker action.
Yep. We got a couple of minutes. Rhino, you got some sound you can play for us real quick? And then JT will talk about it.
And I'm doing this for my students to let them know that you can reach your goals, never give up, don't stop believing. That's my motto. Don't stop believing. Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. Oh, street lights, people.
And that's without auto-tune. That's pretty good. Tell us who that is and what's going on there.
Mr. Daniel Stallworth of Moss Point, Mississippi. If you didn't watch it, that was it right there. He got a golden ticket on American Idol, the season 24 premiere. And I tell you what, Mr. Stallworth, if music does not work out, your voice is good enough, we'll get you in radio. I promise you a job. He's amazing. He's from Moss Point. He's an elementary music teacher. You heard him say there that I'm doing this for my kids.
That's
I
awesome.
tell them, don't stop believing. And that brings in your favorite
Yes.
band, Gerard,
Yes.
Journey. So
Yep.
he sang the song. He knocked it out of the park.
He did.
And this is crazy to think about. 8 months ago, Jamal Roberts from Meridian, an elementary teacher, won American Idol. Can we repeat not only as Mississippians winning, but Mississippi elementary teachers?
Shining big time. Man, that's so good. But what a great message. We need more of him in our public schools is what we need.
We do. So I brought bad news and I end it with good news.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you, Gerard.
JT Mitchell, news director, SuperTalk Mississippi News. We thank them for all their efforts this week. I know you guys have been almost round the clock tracking
Right back
this weather.
at you, man.
Yep, appreciate it. Yep. Coming right back, folks, in the Element Wealth studio. Don't forget Dr. Dan Edney, the state health officer, at 12:05.
From the Seabrook.com.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
Let's go.
Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more.
What you say?
Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't
Welcome back, everyone. You're tuned into Middays. We appreciate you being with us today. A U.S. judge, Margaret Garnett of a federal district court, said that the case against Luigi Mangione would still proceed to trial, but it will not carry the death penalty. Mr. Mangione, of course, the 27-year-old man who is accused of assassinating United Healthcare's chief executive last year in cold blood on video. Said this case is still going on, but in her opinion, 2 stalking charges against Mangione, one of which carried a maximum sentence of death, did not meet the legal definition of a crime of violence and had to be dismissed. What am I missing here? What about the fact that the guy just came up from behind on this individual and just shot him dead on the sidewalk in cold blood in the middle of the day there? Does that not earn you the death penalty? Is that not enough? I don't know.
Usually the death penalty is reserved for a capital crime, and usually a capital crime is the commission of a crime while in the furtherance of a felony.
Okay.
So, I mean, if he committed a felony and the murder, then that would be capital crime.
Okay.
But the murder itself may not carry the death penalty.
I got you. I hear you, and I respect and appreciate the law. Sounds a bit like some hair splitting to me. And I can understand how, through the evolution of our laws, we got to that point. Here, his lawyers argue that this was explicitly and unapologetically political. That was the decision, and statements made by administration officials, including the president, have indelibly prejudiced him. It's just kind of hard not to be prejudiced when the whole world has access to this video. How in the world do you find a jury that's unfamiliar, that would be somewhat unbiased? And usually that means you don't know anything about this, right? You're coming into this. That's the idea. That's almost impossible these days. So, not something that was such a high-profile incident that got global media attention. But again, because of this technology we have, where every inch of the planet is under video surveillance and everybody runs around with a video camera, that's why we have all this stuff. It's hard not to see it. So the lawyers argued that the stalking offenses didn't meet that definition, as you just pointed out. And so, okay. Now, I'm sure that the Mangione aficionados are celebrating this, right? I
mean, that number has dwindled a bit when they found out he was a short king.
What the hell is that?
He's a little guy.
Okay.
The fawners thought he was hunky until they saw him in court and realized they were taller than he is.
Oh my gosh, I get it.
He still has his flunkies and his groupies, but the crowd has thinned a bit.
You know, look, we can be mad at health insurance companies all day long. Certainly, I get it. They're probably the most detested companies in our country. Just the most loathed. But to celebrate a guy, as they did, who assassinated another human, a husband, a father, that's just beyond wrong. And it's scary that we have people in this country, as they have justified the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. They're wackos that think that's just perfectly fine. Well, if that gets me what I want, it's okay for them to die. That's just hard for me to believe that that's where we are in a civil society.
And the ultimate irony is the vast majority of the people espousing those views are the people that will lecture you if you're not empathetic enough
That's
or
so
tolerant
true.
enough.
That is absolutely true. Where's your compassion? Oh, the humanity. Yeah, you're totally right about that. And it's just another example.
I'm becoming more and more convinced that's why they all have the obligatory nose ring.
That may be
because
right.
Because subconsciously they understand they are being led by the nose.
Unbelievable. And, this is kind of related, that this issue of illegal immigration and sanctuary cities certainly has sparked media attention with the shooting fatalities that occurred in Minneapolis in the last month. Governor Healy, Maura Healy of the Bay State of Massachusetts, she declared, so you'll know, Rhino, yesterday that Massachusetts is not a sanctuary state. So I went down a bit of a rabbit hole on that. Got to share this with you. Few points to that here, Governor. You signed a funding bill to provide up to $426 million to house illegals in your state. You use taxpayer money to house illegals. You asked residents to quarter them in their homes. Illegals. How many of you think took them up on that? I guarantee you, not the ones that are out there saying, we got to love the illegals. It's not them. I would argue that conservatives would be more likely to answer that call than these boneheaded liberals. Removed bus services for students and diverted the funds towards transporting illegals. Oh, I remember this one. Turned the airport into a migrant encampment. You remember that? We talked about that on the show. Turned luxury.
Yeah, they tried to arrest anybody that wandered into that part of the airport.
That's right. Turned luxury buildings into migrant shelters and paid a premium for it. And then, of course, she presided over Boston, denying 100% of ICE detainer requests. Oh, but it's not a sanctuary city. Pay no attention. That's all true. I researched that. Every bit of that's true. What do you say when their mouth is moving, their lips are moving, they're lying? You're lying here. You may not call it I don't care if you call it polka dot. You're giving quarter and deference and services funded by American taxpayers to illegals. That's just a simple fact. I don't care if you call it sanctuary or not. Quit with the semantic games.
Oh, but that's all they have. They don't use logic. They don't think ahead. All they got's feelings.
So true. Well,
so they'll twist words all out of proportion and distort them beyond their stated definition just so they can protect their little precious feelings.
That's exactly right. And I'm looking,
or so that they can bolster their feelings and feel like, oh, well, I did something so virtuous.
On the C Spire text line, let's get to some text messages here. This was earlier in the program. We were just talking about and praising, complimenting the large number of Mississippians that were not affected by the storm, or maybe briefly so, and they're helping others that are still in need, and we appreciate that. This is on the C Spire text line. I saw it firsthand in my hometown of Laurel during Katrina. I'm not surprised that we're witnessing this again in the wake of Winter Storm Fern. Have a great weekend. Appreciate that message. Really do. Rocky and Mark says, I don't ever want to see ice in my tea until April. Ricky in Aberdeen says he's with you. He likes the cold. Okay. And maybe it's because I like golf and baseball and stuff, and that's more warm weather sports. But I get it.
But, I mean, they still play those sports in the wintry north.
They do. They
just use those brightly colored orange and yellow balls.
That's right. Let's see. This is on the C Spire text line. This is interesting. We've heard from Robyn Tannehill daily. Is it possible to get an update from the current mayor? You know, that's something that maybe our content folks can take a look at. I really don't know, other than it certainly appears, and I'm not trying to downplay what happened in that part of the state, and we've talked about Tippah County as well. We know those are problems areas as well. And I can't really explain that, but yeah, I can suggest it, Rhino, that maybe we get somebody from the eastern part of the state.
Well, I mean, a lot of the focus has been on Oxford because the area in and around Oxford was the hardest hit.
Yeah, agree. And I think that's why that the mayor has been on the programs to give us an update. The Commissioner of Agriculture, Andy Gibson, has had some trips up north with supplies. I would encourage folks, if they can, to contribute to that effort. I think it's still available today. The Armory down on the Mississippi State Fairgrounds here in central Mississippi. I dropped off a bunch of stuff this past Monday that I feel confident made its way where it is needed. We're stepping aside for a break, coming right back from the Element Wealth studio. Dr. Dan Edney kicks us off in hour 3.
Poly up of Mississippi.
Are we going to do this? Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum. I feel free. Bum 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 bum.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth studio. So, on the C Spire text line, Michael in Brookhaven asks, Becky Curry posted the homeschool bill died. What's that about? Everyone that commented was happy. Yeah, I'm glad it died as well. This was legislation that would have imposed fairly onerous requirements on families who do, in fact, homeschool their children. And it would have required lots of reporting, and it would have imposed lots of regulations that I would say infringe on the freedom of a family to educate their their child at home. So it was, I can't remember the exact bill.
House Bill 1512.
Yeah, okay, got it. So, yeah, so that's kind of a crazy bill. It would have required these parents to file a bunch of reports and would regulate them almost as if they were a full-fledged public school. It's really. They would have had
up to and including standardized testing.
Right, exactly. I had a copy of the certificate of enrollment, a portfolio of the work, the pedagogy, a written progress report that would mirror the Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standards reports, results, as you say, from the online assessments, attendance records, standardized test results, and there may be some others as well. But that's kind of a rundown where government would stick its nose in your house and dictate to you what your homeschool environment would look like and require you to send a bunch of paperwork in. And isn't that kind of back to what we complain about in the public schools, Rhino, that we spend too much time with testing and paperwork and reporting and
teaching to the test.
Right, as opposed to educating? Yeah. So, thank God this thing did die. HB 1512. This would really shaken up a lot of homeschool families, requiring them to send all this paperwork to the Department of Education every year. And then, of course, you have the issue of auditing that, how if they did, which I'm glad they don't have to, how the heck do you verify that all that's accurate? I have concerns about the public schools sending in that information. And that's not saying that they're intentionally manipulating the data, misreporting the data. I just think mistakes happen. And when you think about the mountain that they have to report, that's just a possibility, strong possibility. So let's see. Dave says, didn't like the consolidation bill. Betty in Hattiesburg says that. Okay, yeah, I believe that. There are a lot of people that did not like talking about the community college consolidation bill. A lot of people didn't. And that looks like that's dead. Not going to happen. Also on the C Spire text line, just talking about those who have assisted with restoration efforts. Don't forget about the guys who are working around the clock to restore all the cell phone towers. Most people don't consider us first responders, but we absolutely are. We are doing our best to get these restored so other first responders can communicate and everyone can check on loved ones that they can't get to. Absolutely. Certainly don't mean to overlook you guys or downplay your efforts. That's near and dear to my heart. Coming from the IT world, we took that very seriously. I was operating a data center and had numerous clients on the coast during Katrina and also across the southern Louisiana. We had a big operation there. Man, I remember it well. And back then, Rhino, we were mobilizing satellite communications before there was a Starlink to try to establish some minimal communications capabilities. And it's the same thing that you heard the mayor talk about. Focus first on, we had a big home health care organization headquartered in Baton Rouge. Tried to get to all those facilities first, right? Because that's where our seniors are, where you really need communications to make sure that they're taken care of. They're more vulnerable. But so, yeah, absolutely appreciate that on the C Spire text line. This is, I believe, Bobby and Hazelhurst. We're certainly not forgetting about you. We don't want to be remiss in that regard, and we deeply appreciate your efforts and realize how important it is at the core to reestablish those communications systems and services so that others can do their job to assist Mississippians in need. Absolutely. We're stepping aside for a break, coming right back after Fox News and SuperTalk News with the State Health Officer, Dr. Dan Edney.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply, and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Hour 3, the afternoon portion of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on this Friday, y'all. We're pleased to welcome now Dr. Dan Edney. He serves as the State Health Officer for the great state of Mississippi. Dr. Edney, always good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming in.
Always glad to be here. Thank you.
So, you sent me a note a couple of weeks ago where you were rightfully touting some positive news. I always talk about this, that you're not only the state health officer, which has a huge regulatory component associated with it, but you as a physician and more specifically in the practice area of addiction treatment, you're passionate about the health of Mississippi. I've witnessed that in Mississippians, and you've been on the program talking about it's not only a function of quality of life, but there's an economic component and bent to this as well.
Absolutely.
But you just share with me a folder, giving us kind of a report card. Talk about that.
Yeah, and that us being so poor in our overall health outcomes as a population and have the opportunity to do something about it is why I was willing to leave private practice and come take this job, because the main statutory responsibility I have as state health officer is to work to make it better.
Okay.
Since state law list of 10 priorities, number 1, maternal infant health, but also diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, cancer. And I take that seriously. You and I have talked for the last 3.5 years where we started. We weren't just 50th, we were 50th by a mile. We were way back from the pack. And I said if there were other states, we would have been 60th, whatever. I was really pleased 2 years ago to see us close that gap. Now, we were still 50th, but at least we were legit 50th. Gaining. And we were improving more than any other state was improving. And then in 2024, we moved to 49th, which was a big deal to me because finally we're off the bottom. And then we just got our health rankings 2 weeks ago for 2025, and we moved up to 48th in the nation, which to me as state health officer is tremendously important. Hadn't made much off the last 3 years until I saw a trend. But, Gerard, I really think we're on the move and that we're moving up. We have moved past Louisiana, who's now 50th. We've moved past Arkansas, who's now 49th. And those are two states who can no longer say, thank God for Mississippi, because we're doing better than they are. We're healthier than they are. We're not healthy enough, but we're better than we were.
Where would you attribute this improvement?
Well, as the report card shows, we have made significant improvements with opioid overdose deaths for 3 years in a row. And there aren't a lot of states that can say that. We continue to rank very high with childhood vaccinations. We were first, but we're running third in the nation, but still doing well with that. Teen births and pregnancy rates have steadily declined. Our STI rates, including HIV, syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, have continued to trend down. Most importantly, congenital syphilis, we've cut that in half, and we'll continue to cut that down to zero. Those all moved us in the right direction. And there's a metric called potential years of life lost before age 75. It's our life expectancy is about 73. But we look at age 75, and we look at every death younger than 75 and add those years up. So if a 1-year-old dies from suffocating by co-sleeping in the bed with mom and dad, that's 74 years of potential life loss.
Sure.
And we add all that up for all 35,246 deaths that we had. 3 years ago, it was over 250,000 years.
Okay.
Last year, it was about 195,000. This year, it was down to 189.
Going in the right direction, for sure.
And that's all preventable death. And as that trends down, that's the number one thing I look at, Gerard. And as that metric improves, we will see that translate into better life expectancy for Mississippians. The nation's life expectancy is about 79.
Yeah.
And
so we lag by 6 years, right?
We do. If you're African-American male in the Delta, it's 65.
Unbelievable.
So we've got to improve all these. As we keep working on especially accidental deaths, that will knock that number down and improve our life expectancy. As we improve infant mortality, maternal mortality, same thing, life expectancy improves. But the challenges remain the same. Obesity, which drives diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and stroke. It even, Gerard, drives infant mortality. Obesity does.
I can see that.
Because
more problematic gestation and delivery, right?
44% of our preterm births are of moms with an unhealthy weight. 44%.
Okay.
And every preterm birth is a baby at risk of death.
Sure.
So we are really going after obesity at the population level. The Department of Health have declared that we will add obesity management as a core public health clinical service in our county health department clinics. We will continue working with our partners to work with nutritional training, diet, exercise, working with the Department of Education cooperatively. We've got to work K through 12 education principles, especially with nutrition and exercise. As we improve obesity, that's when you're going to see us really start to move up.
So, Dr. Edney, we were talking offline. Are the weight loss drugs, are they a part of that strategy as well?
Absolutely. They're game changers. As an internist, if we had these medications 30 years ago, it manages diabetes so much better. It reduces risk of cardiovascular disease, end-stage renal disease. I was telling folks at the Capitol, look, if we're determined to take fluoride out of the water, then put GLP-1s in. They are extremely helpful. Gerard, if you need to lose 10, 15, 20 pounds, no. We don't need medication for that.
Sure.
If you need to lose 100 pounds, 150 pounds, realistically, it's extremely difficult to get there on your own.
Yeah.
And then also just the ability to better manage prediabetes and diabetes. as you move the weight down. But you have to partner that with proper nutrition and exercise.
Yeah.
So at some point, you got to come off the meds.
Yeah.
We don't want to yo-yo, but they are powerfully effective.
Originally created for diabetes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And saw that the side benefit. We always talk about side effects.
Yeah.
But sometimes there are side benefits. We saw the side benefit of just knocking appetite out.
Yeah.
The other side benefit we're seeing, which is crazy, reduction of craving for alcohol and opioids.
Wow.
So there's a lot of research going into GLP-1s in the addiction space because it works on areas of the brain that calm down craving.
Dr. Edney, to those who could benefit from these weight loss drugs, and I'm dwelling on that because you just reported obesity is the cause and the number one problem. What are the risks? Can folks be reasonably comfortable that there really are no big-time risk to their other aspects of their health?
Well, I'm a big believer that any drug can do anything to anybody.
Sure.
And preach that as an internist for over 30 years. But they are extremely safe, and the risk-benefit ratio is far in favor of benefit. There are things, we don't need to be just prescribing willy-nilly.
Yeah.
We don't need to prescribe to lose 10 pounds, but there are some screenings that have to be done. There's some medical conditions with which you cannot take these medications, so you need proper physician oversight. But we've used them long enough now that we know their side effect and risk profile.
Yeah.
And it's all favorable.
I may say, it just comes to mind just listening to you talk about, these aren't vanity drugs, they're health drugs.
That's right. Absolutely, not vanity drugs, and they don't need to be abused that way because they're not cheap, and there actually is a limited supply.
Yeah,
so,
I've seen that.
Yeah, we need our folks who truly need it. I'm real proud that our Medicaid program understands the long-term downstream benefit. We're not going to see a benefit next year. It'll be 10, 15 years down the road, but it's a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Because as we move the needle on obesity, then all the other dominoes fall into place as well. And our number one cause of death in Mississippi is heart disease, followed by cancer, and stroke is high on the list. And this is how we attack it.
Yeah, all of which are expensive to treat as well. And then you often highlight the economic impact on that. Just the number of years lost.
That's right.
A huge economic impact.
So that improvement of the last 3 years, we are chipping away at that $25 billion a year. We are performing with economic development through health.
Hang with us, and we'll dig into some of the related legislation that our legislature has taken up this 2026 session. Dr. Dan Edney, Mississippi State Health Officer, is in the Element Wealth studio.
Well, it's time for the greatest.
Attention, adoring fans! It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone, to Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We're visiting with Dr. Dan Edney, the State Health Officer. So, making improvements, that's the main message today on the health of Mississippians across these key metrics that you guys track and report. You were kind enough to bring us a little folder here that illustrates that. So we should be promoting that.
Absolutely. But I liken it to having a patient who's really sick, but they're getting better.
Okay.
And that's where we are. We're not as healthy as we need to be, but we're better than we were 4 or 5 years ago.
It feels like, in no small part, Dr. Edney, due to your team's efforts, we're more focused on it than we have been, it feels like. And I think we finally got enough experience to realize, if we could improve this, we'd all benefit from it.
Absolutely, and that we could. I think we were in the mindset 5 years and further ago that it's just the way it is.
I agree.
And it's going to be that way. And then we proved everybody wrong with education. And then my philosophy was, why not health?
I totally agree. Well, I applaud you and your team for that, and we want to see the health of our state improve. It's in all of our best interest, and something I know that bothers you, it bothers me, only because I've had the privilege of getting a first-hand observation of the NICU at UMC,
yes,
world class, absolutely world class. But as we talk about so many times, most of those cases avoidable. And it not only costs money, but there's the obvious human, more important element of that as well. But still ranking high in that infant mortality is something that I hope we continue to do better at.
And we will. We have to. And that is one very expensive problem.
Big time.
To lead the nation in infant mortality as we do, it's extremely expensive. It's about not quite $4 billion a year negative impact.
Man.
And so that gives us a lot of opportunity to use resources to knock that number down and get a return on investment. Chairman Sam Creekmore has been really digging in with us with this issue, and there's good legislation moving through.
Okay.
And I would just ask everybody to keep an open mind and look at alternative ways. What we've been doing is not working, so we've got to try some other alternatives that may be out of the box a little bit, but I don't care if it saves our babies.
Yeah, and you've explained to us today your priority and your recognition that obesity is the root cause for so many of these things.
Yep.
Got to believe infant mortality is one of those as well.
It absolutely is. And I believe as we add this core public health service for obesity management throughout the state, and especially in our rural, lower income areas, that will help move the needle some.
Okay.
Give everybody access to it, just like we did with opioid use disorder. We opened the doors for access, and we're saving lives. It ought to work for obesity. Let's try it.
That is one of the areas that we've improved on, specifically opioid deaths. So
absolutely.
See that declining, trending downward. All right, let's turn our attention to the legislature and all the work under the dome related to health. Of course, one of the most controversial topics of all, there's certificate of need laws in the state of Mississippi, where certain providers of healthcare services, even healthcare operations that seek to purchase equipment, essentially have to get permission from the Department of Health to do that. It's kind of a high-level way to describe it.
By state law.
By state law, right. You're simply acting on statute in that case. But there are a couple of bills that are on the table up for debate this year concerning some reforms of those laws. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, one just went through is the same bill that passed last year that the governor vetoed for some good reasons.
Okay.
And legislature corrected the governor's concerns, and it went right through. And one big thing it did was part of CON by statute is based on capital expenditures for CON holders. And if there's a threshold, if you go by the threshold, you have to get a CON to spend the money, which is, in my opinion, ridiculous.
Yeah.
So Board of Health and the agency recommended to the legislature elimination of capital expenditure thresholds. They chose last year to double them, which is a good move and fully supportive. So doubling the CapEx will help hospitals and other healthcare systems and those who are wanting to expand services to be able to do it without CON restraints.
Okay.
Good law.
And so we should point out to our audience, I believe this is right, Dr. Edney, that didn't just apply to the acquisition of equipment used in clinical services, but it could extend beyond that just to physical infrastructure.
Absolutely.
Right? Parking lots, I think, is one of the things that came
we had a healthcare system in a very rural area that was renovating, expanding their primary care service provision building.
Okay.
And we it went above the old capital expenditure threshold, and there was nothing I could do to help them get around that, and they had to go through CON. And of course, we were going to approve it.
Yeah,
but we had by state law to go through the process. The doubling the capex would have kept them from having to do that, or eliminating it would have been even better. But that's a good move in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree. Because we can't overlook the fact that the CON process is fairly arduous. I mean, that's not it's on your part and on the applicant's part.
That's right. And we are going through, on the regulatory side, reviewing all regulations that are not driven by statute, and seeing if they still make sense.
Okay, sure.
And looking at regulatory reform ourselves, because it makes no sense for the legislature to be looking at statutory reform and us not look at regulatory reform.
Okay. So anything else related to CON besides that?
Big move. Chairman Creekmore brought out of committee a CON reform bill that gave an exemption for rural hospitals who already have a CON, that if they're living in communities of less than 15,000, they're already there with the CON, they want to expand services, they just apply to us for a waiver, an exemption, and we just document, yes, you qualify for the statutory exemption, and you don't have to do CON for anything.
Especially that's important in our rural areas, isn't it, where we have a shortage of supply of health care?
Absolutely. And I just am a believer government needs to get out of the way to let them thrive and invest in themselves.
Yeah.
And, CON is still there to keep, these are small areas that can't stand, a lot of competition. So CON is there, but they can invest in their communities, invest in themselves without state government being in the way. It still has guardrails in place, that are appropriate, but I think it's a game changer for our small rural hospitals.
The House, historically, as you know, this is kind of a political comment here, has always looked more favorably upon reforming and even repealing CON. The Senate, not so much so. Hopefully they can get on the same page and get some of this good stuff through.
Chairman Creekmore and Chairman Bryan have been working closely together, and also been working with us through the year as we've been studying these reform options that have been recommended.
Yeah. All right, so with respect to kind of the national scene, how it affects Mississippi, there's been a lot of stuff that's passed up in Washington that, as you well know, affects the subsidies in the ACA marketplaces, also affects Medicaid and Medicaid work requirements, who Medicaid can cover, who the ACA plans can cover. Anything you're hearing from the provider community along those lines that you're concerned about?
Yeah, everybody's concerned about two things. One, losing the ACA enhanced subsidies. We still have the basic subsidies. Yeah. And I would say that we probably don't need to be subsidizing to 400% of federal poverty level, but we sure need to be at 150.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is going to impact hospitals and clinics because we will see the number go down from those getting their insurance through the exchange. They'll move into the uninsured.
Yeah, which means you got to figure out some other way to get money to cover that.
Right. So everybody's looking at that. And then, making sure that the Medicaid budget is covered. It's math.
Yeah.
You have so much money appropriated. You have so much money that you draw down from the federal government. You have services that have to be provided. The Division of Medicaid has to do the math and make it balance.
Yeah.
And so we just encourage the legislature to fund Medicaid.
Yeah.
Medicaid is the backbone of health care in this state. Everybody listening right now, the Medicaid program is what keeps our hospitals going.
750,000 in Mississippi roughly enrolled in the Medicaid program. Total federal and state spending over $7 billion.
All goes into our economy.
Yeah.
But you know how much the hospitals benefit from the Medicaid program.
Yeah. Dr. Dan Edney, the state health officer from the Mississippi Department of Health, has been our guest. Appreciate it, Dr. Edney.
Thank you.
Yes,
My
sir.
pleasure.
Thanks for coming in. Half an hour of Middays remains. Stay with us.
From the Seabrook
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite! On SuperTalk Mississippi.
That's some smooth music there from the Little River Band. Appreciate that, Rhino. We just don't make music like that anymore, as the saying goes. That's just so smooth with the headphones on, especially. Always appreciate Dr. Dan Edney, the state health officer, for joining us here in the Element Wealth studio. My friend Sharon and Brandon says on the C Spire text line, yesterday, y'all were discussing the extra charge fee that restaurants will charge if you use your credit or debit. Today at lunch in Ridgeland, I presented my card to pay, and the employee actually asked me if it was a debit or a credit card. I asked him about it. He said it was because of the fee when using a credit card, I think distinguishing from a debit card. And that, you're right. First time I've ever been asked. I can't say that's the first time. I've been asked that a lot. And I haven't really noticed it, whether or not, okay, when I tell you it's a debit, that I want to use it as a debit. I haven't really noticed if that shows that the fee is not added. But, the adding of the fee is kind of recent. It hasn't been going on forever. I just think as the fees got higher. And the other thing was the margins are getting squeezed in the retail community, especially with the Biden inflation, where they were, caught in a situation of, hey, do I pass this on to the customer, in which case I probably would lose business, right? Or do I absorb it? But if I absorb it, I'm going to have to pass on these credit card fees. And I think that's when you started to see it really introduced into the retail industry, and you started seeing signs all over the place, right? But appreciate you telling us about that, Sharon. But it's good to know. I've always thought it was just because they wanted your preference. Again, I just didn't pay attention to the ticket close enough to know, did they add that onto there or not, when I said, no, I want it to be a debit versus a credit. So,
well, occasionally if they have certain systems in place, it could determine how they swipe or tap.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I thought. And honestly, because that would depend on whether or not your account is debited or credited, right? So, that's really what it boils down to. I do have a debit card, but I never use it for credit. So,
or I've been in a convenience store before where they had one register that was their credit card register and the other register was debit and cash.
I hadn't seen that. Okay. They just got them programmed that way,
but
essentially.
I think that
configured
was
that way.
partially due to one of the machines would only read one way and the other one would only read the other way.
That could be. That would sound like some older equipment. So, as a restaurant owner, the CC company charges us regardless if it's a debit or credit. That's what I thought. They're charging us for the service of processing their payment. Yeah, that's their revenue stream. That's their service. Keith and Baden, good to y'all again being rough up this way in Baden. Yeah, that's what we hear. And we've seen photos, heard reports. And
I just got a report from Scary Gary that the Oxford station is back on.
Oh, cool. Cool. Great news. I've been a few places since Dan in Hattiesburg, to a few places that had the fees built in so you could get a cash discount for using folding money. Yeah, I've seen that as well. I get it, because there's no cost associated with the upstream cost to a credit card processing company. Let's see. Still recommending the same diet interventions that's made us all fatter and unhealthier over the last 40 years. I'm not sure what they're talking about there on the C Spire text line. Let's see what else we got. Wow. Karen and Awesome says, I might be losing it, but that is a cross any way you look at it. Yeah, it's a shadow being cast by the downed trees and branches, and it does create a cross. I see that, Karen, and that's a sign of hope and better days ahead. Adam and Baldwin asked, what are the chances online sports betting gets passed this time? Okay.
Slim to none.
Yeah, I was going to say I would hesitate to, pun intended, handicap it. But, yeah, it's another situation where the House is favorable and the Senate is not. I am working with a friend that wants to build a horse track, by the way, down on the coast. Curious to see what folks think about that. I support it. Met with MDA yesterday to kind of lay out that plan. Actually had with us, Rhino, someone from the equestrian entertainment industry in Kentucky, a sixth-generation Kentuckian whose family has been in that business for quite a long time, is helping my friend with this endeavor. And this is fascinating. It would require law to be passed in Mississippi allowing pari-mutuel betting. This is something that's been talked about a lot for a long time. Heck, I remember back when I was in college I had a fraternity brother who wrote a thesis on pari-mutuel betting, allowing it in Mississippi. That's when there were some folks that wanted to put a dog racing track. This is before casinos, of course, popped onto the scene. But, yeah, I'd like to see that happen. I think that it's more family entertainment, honestly, and if you did something that was really high caliber with the track and hotels and restaurants and all the amenities and so forth, I think that'd be fantastic. I support it. So Professor Richlack up in Oxford, he said, talking about the service in Oxford, Rhino, said, I had the radio turned on and turned to SuperTalk when the station came back online. He said, you kind of startled me, so appreciate that, Professor Richlack. Glad to know that we're back on the air in Oxford, and we apologize for that. And also, just as our texter said a minute ago, we should not forget about those who are helping restore our wireless communication services and wired communication services to a great extent. We also need to recognize those in our network, Rhino, that have been working tirelessly to restore operations back to normal. And I will say this, folks, and I'm not just saying this because I happen to work here, but you know this, Rhino, the people here really do feel a sense of obligation to inform Mississippi. And when the network is crippled, we feel like we're not able to fulfill that goal and that obligation, that function. And that's why we're grateful to those who have been working to get us back to normal so we can continue to fulfill that role that we have here and responsibility we feel like we have to the audience of Mississippi. Thanks a lot for being patient with us in that respect. The subject of taxes, property taxes, is one that gets a lot of attention. A lot of folks in the state of Mississippi, of course, complain, understandably, about the car tags. We have to pay ad valorem taxes on our car tags and the various fees, the privilege fees. And then, of course, we also have real property taxes. Boy, do I know that well. I just stopped in my tax collector's office this past week and wrote that check. Whew, had to get me off the floor. And you know what else I found out about is the amount it's going up next year. So I it kind of got big-eyed when I saw they gave me a piece of paper that showed what it's going to be next year. And said, well, that's not as bad as some of them. Okay. So it's just an idea I had. We, of course, rely on property taxes to fund schools, to fund county functions, to fund, if you live in the city, many cities, of course, derive a large component of their revenue to fund city operations, city services from ad valorem taxes. We're in the process now, as you know, of eliminating the income tax. It's going to take a while, but that is already being addressed. What do you guys think about, it's an idea I had, about eliminating ad valorem taxes on cars? The car tag, right? Except the small road and bridge, is that what it's called? The privilege fee? It's a fee. It's a flat fee. So that's just not a lot of money. There's 2 fees I think you pay as part of that. I can't remember what the other one is, but it's $25-$30 a year. The vast majority of it is the millage applied to the value of your car. Boom, that's the amount you pay in ad valorem taxes. What do you think about eliminating that, but passing law in the legislature that would amend and repeal the requirement of the legislature to authorize a municipality, a county, to add a local option of sales tax, and would no longer maybe require the people to go to the polls? And you don't have to do that now. It doesn't require a referendum. But what I'm saying is just get the state government out of that affair. Eliminate property taxes on cars, I'm talking about. I'll talk about it on the other side of the break.
The one body.
You know what that means.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
We'll do it live.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Final segment to wrap up this cold week where a big winter storm swept through Mississippi. I live in Gore Springs, east of Grenada, and we still don't have power. Man, hang in there. Sorry to hear that. Let's see. Somebody else. Yeah, Dan in Hattiesburg. We appreciate this, Dan. He says, I'm thankful for you guys. I really came to appreciate radio after Katrina when we didn't have power restored for almost 3 weeks. It was refreshing to climb in the car, if only for a few minutes, to get some air conditioning and hear the news from the rest of the world. Appreciate that, Dan. And again, we do take it that obligation we feel like we have seriously to keep our audience informed. This whole network does, and that's why everybody's working literally overtime to get operations restored back to normal. So I apologize for the poor explanation I did before we went to break of this just idea I'm floating here. Nothing more than that. This isn't legislation. It's an idea of a way to reduce or eliminate car tax, except for the road privilege tax and the other fee. Again, I can't remember what it is, but it's not the part that's breaking your wallet. It's that ad valorem tax that's breaking your wallet. And my recommendation, or my suggestion, I should say, is to replace it with an increase in sales taxes. Allow the cities and counties to add a local option, a sales tax layer that would stay in the city or county where the transaction is made, to mitigate the loss of the revenue from a car tax. Now,
privilege tax and a registration fee.
The registration, thank you. That's what it was. But it's like $15 and $10 or something like that. What is it?
Yeah, $15, and the registration is $14 for a first-time registration and $12.75 for renewals.
Okay, it's minimal. That's not what folks are complaining about, and that's flat across the state. It's that millage, which is just the number applied to the value of your vehicle as determined by our law. There's law that prescribes how to calculate the value of your vehicle. But where I'm going with this is, I know a lot of people would say, well, they can just do without. Well, you can't do without. You can't run a county with zero revenue. You got to have something. I'm suggesting let's replace the car tags, which everybody just laments. I don't know anybody that says, I'm so excited about going to pay my car tags, because you get that notice in the mail and you got to come out of pocket for it in a lump sum. But I'm suggesting allow the cities and the counties to add a small local component. By the way, I modeled this working with Department of Revenue. I should say with the Department of Revenue through a member of the House. Okay, I suggested this to a member of the House. Was good enough to go get Department of Revenue because I told you I couldn't find that data. They have it. I knew they did. It's just not published. And here's where I'm going. It works out that you could totally eliminate car tax in this particular county. I'm not going to name it right now, but I bet you'd find that to be similar in the other counties. I don't think there would be a major variance if you added 1.2 percentage points to the current state sales tax rate. So if you went from 7 to 8.2, that would generate roughly the same, slightly more than the current revenue derived from the ad valorem taxes on your cars, your car tax. You would still pay the $20 a year, the road privilege tax, whatever, fee, not tax, fee, and the registration fee.
What's a privilege tax and a registration fee?
Okay, thank you. Privilege tax. The privilege of driving on the roads literally is what it is, right? That was how it's rooted. It's just an idea. Just curious about that.
That's part of why you sign when you get your driver's license, is you're technically signing that you understand it is a privilege.
That's right. So
you're also signing saying that you will hand over your driver's license when asked by a member of law enforcement.
That is true. And my thoughts on this is, you know this, we as conservatives believe that it's more fair, more equitable, more efficient to tax consumption than income or certainly property. And I know that this is important. And you could take it to real property, the property taxes you pay on your home. You could as well. You could reduce those taxes and add a local component. The problem now is for a city to add a local option, they got to get permission from the legislature, and then they got to do a referendum that requires, 2/3 approval, I think. And that's onerous. And I understand that, and sometimes voters approve it, sometimes they don't. It's still a long, drawn-out process that most of them aren't going to do. Here's what I'm suggesting. Put that back where it belongs, in the cities and counties. You don't like how they're doing it? Vote for new supervisors and new city leaders. Take it out of the legislature. But let's think about raising money through consumption taxes rather than this big lump sum that everybody hates to pay every year on their cars. It's just an idea. That's all it is at this point. We'll see where it goes. Just curious. Wanted to get it out there. And we'll pick that up again next week. Larry and I says replace it all. I'm for that as well, Larry. All taxes. I'm for that as well. And we could do the math on that, but most people object, unfortunately. Out of here today. Stay safe and warm this weekend, and God bless.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.